Hi, my name is Jim. If we've not met, I help early career compliance officers build stronger relationships with their healthcare leaders in order to operate a more effective compliance program. In this video, I'm going to go through 5 common mistakes that I see early career compliance officers making and offer some strategies and tips to help you overcome them. Now, as a quick disclaimer, I do want to mention that I'm guilty of all 5 of these when I was starting out earlier in my career. And so I'm going to share some insight that hopefully will help you avoid some of the same mistakes that I made earlier on. And so with that, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let me ask you a quick question. Have you ever wondered what seasoned compliance officers know about our jobs that new ones learn the hard way? A little bit of a trick question, but if you know me, you know that I like the unwritten rules of compliance work. Those sort of subtle cues that we learn through our jobs, through trial and error or experience, which oftentimes is painful. And so what I like to do is go through them, offer some strategies and advice to hopefully help accelerate the career of those compliance officers that are just starting out. So let's go through what I think are probably the 5 most common ones. Okay, so the first one is going to be taking pushback personally or defensively, might be best to think about it. So I'm definitely guilty of this when I first started out. And the first thing I would offer is that if you have healthcare leaders that are pushing back on you, that's actually not a bad thing. It's a good thing, which it means that they're engaged and they are engaged to what you're saying. They're listening to what you're saying. It's just they've got some concerns as it relates to whatever it is that you're proposing from their particular point of view. So what you want to do is just make sure you take that point of view into account, make sure you understand where they're coming from, any concerns they have, and trying to figure out a way that you can address those concerns in a way that's both business friendly and compliant. So the first tip I would offer to get around this and not take things personally is to just recognize that this is a level of engagement, and that's what you really want at the end of the day with the compliance program. The second thing is to adopt a curiosity mindset rather than a judgmental one. And that means figure out, why are they pushing back? What is it about this requirement? What is it that I'm saying or how I'm saying it that's coming across in a way that they are pushing back? And what is it that I need to understand? Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Answering questions that you're not sure about. This happens quite frequently, and especially with newer compliance folks. They get into a discussion with healthcare leaders. Leadership asks a question of the compliance officer. The compliance officer is not 100% sure they know the answer, but they present it as if they do know what the answer is. So if this scenario happens to you, do not follow that approach. It'd be my number one advice. And so I think this is a common pitfall because what happens is early career compliance officers, they want to be seen as the expert. They don't want to be seen as if they don't know an answer to a question. And then they fall into this trap. The problem is, if you give an answer that you're not sure about and it turns out to be wrong, now you're going to have to circle back and correct the mistake. And that's going to cause some trust issues with the leadership folks. So that's why I say don't follow that approach. The better approach is to be transparent with them. What you want to do, it's okay to say, I don't know the answer to a question. And so what you say is, I don't know the answer to that question. That is a good one. Let me do some research and see what I can find out, and I'll circle back. And then just make sure you go through the process of researching whatever the answer is and circling back to whoever asked the question so you maintain building that trust. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. That is assuming leadership thinks like you. This is also a common mistake that I see come up. And oftentimes I think what happens is compliance officers don't really realize that leadership doesn't know the rules and regulations. They don't know the inner workings of compliance programs the way we do. But yet we assume they do. And so what you want to do is, first of all, be mindful of that knowledge gap. There is a knowledge gap there, and oftentimes you do have to close that up. And what you do is you just make sure that when you're explaining concepts or regulatory language or policy language, that you're doing so in a way that's going to connect with your audience. And so that sometimes means taking a step back and connecting the dots. A really good trick, at least for me mentally, that helps with this is just thinking that if I'm going to be talking about this particular topic with my audience of leaders, I'm going to talk to them as if they don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm going to talk to them as if they're a second grade class or something like that, or somebody off the street, somebody that has no background with this particular issue. By taking that mental approach, it does make sure that you connect the dots and explain things logically from one step to the next. Excuse me. Okay, next one is saying no without offering a solution. So you may have heard the phrase, don't just bring problems, bring solutions. And that is very true with compliance work. And that is something that you do want to follow. Let me take that a step further and offer a formula that may help. So let's say, for example, This is coming up in the context of an issue that you've identified, and now you have to have a conversation with leadership. So there's a 3-element formula that I typically follow for this. And that is, the first thing I want to do is make sure and explain the issue. What are the facts and circumstances that led us to this particular point in time? The next thing I want to do is explain the risk. What is the risk to the organization? What's the risk to patient care? What is the legal risk, the reputational risk, the financial risk? All those types of things I want to make sure and outline for that particular health leader, because that is going to be a top of mind concern for him or her. The third thing I want to do, and this is the solution part, is offer a path forward. What are the steps that we're going to take to correct the issue and prevent it from happening in the future so that we can get the organization back to a state of certainty? So that's one formula you can follow for that particular situation. Now, let's say it's a different situation where maybe it's a business proposal or business dealing, and they're looking for your advice on that. In that particular context, what you want to do is you don't want to use no as the first words out of your mouth. Or if you do, you want to say no, but what if we tried it this way? I always coach compliance officers that no should be the last words out of your mouth, not the first. And what I mean by that is you should have exhausted all other possibilities first, ones that are both compliant and business friendly. In my career that spans over 25 years, I think there's only a few times I've ever got to a situation where we could not find a solution. Now, it does mean there are some concessions that are going to have to be made and some compromise, but oftentimes you can find a solution that's going to be business friendly and compliant friendly, and that's what your overall goal should be. Next issue is waiting until there is an issue to build a relationship. This is another one that I commonly coach compliance officers about, and that is, if you are starting with an organization, don't wait until an issue comes up to build a strong relationship with that particular leader. You should be setting up a series of meet and greet meetings to establish rapport with those leaders before an issue happens. You can set 30 minutes on their calendar just to exchange backgrounds, get to know them, understand their role in the organization, that kind of thing. Now, the other thing is with healthcare, operational leaders come and go all the time. There's always going to be what I consider a new to you leader. And so when that happens, that's another opportunity. You want to reach out, take the initiative, and set up a time to meet with that particular leader, get to know them personally, get to know their operations. That way it helps once you get to the point down the road where they do actually have an issue. They're going to be much more inclined to reach out to you proactively when the issue is a little issue and you can fix it, rather than trying to fix it themselves and then it blossoms into a larger mess that you get to resolve. So I hope this information was helpful. If I can be of help to you at any particular point in time, don't hesitate to reach out and include my contact information. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye for now.